There is a village in the Blue Mountains that the British Army burned to the ground, wiped off the map, and then quietly stopped talking about. The stone foundations are still up there, swallowed by fog and wild bamboo. Local guides will walk you to the ridge, point across the valley, and stop. They will not take the last mile with you, and they will not tell you why in daylight. Jamaica is still full of places like this. Villages built by people who never surrendered, settlements where the road simply ends and the folklore begins. These are 11 mysterious villages in Jamaica you should never visit by yourself. Before we get into the list, do me one favor and hit subscribe. I cover the parts of the Caribbean the tourist brochures quietly leave out every single week. Now let's start at number 11. Number 11. Wait a bit, Trelawny. The village is called Wait a Bit, and nobody agrees on why. Some say it comes from a thorny vine that grabs your clothes and holds you in place until you stop and untangle yourself. Others say it comes from what travelers used to shout at each other on that road, because the only way through the interior was slow, single file, and blind. Wait a Bit sits on the eastern shoulder of Cockpit Country, which is the closest thing the Caribbean has to a natural labyrinth. Limestone hills stacked shoulder to shoulder for hundreds of square miles, every one of them shaped like an upside-down egg carton. There are no straight lines. There are almost no landmarks. Your GPS will happily route you onto a bauxite track that turns to red mud and then turns to nothing. People do live here, and they are welcoming when you come the right way. The problem is the terrain around them. Sinkholes open under the grass without warning. Phone signal dies about a mile past the last shop. Every year somebody decides to explore the bush alone, and every year somebody has to go find them. There is also the history nobody advertises. This whole belt was Maroon ambush country, and the reason the roads bend the way they do is that they were never really roads. They were footpaths that got paved over centuries later, and they follow the logic of people who did not want to be followed. Wait a bit. That is the whole warning, and it is written right there in the name. Number 10. Seaford Town, Westmoreland. In 1835, more than 1,000 German settlers stepped off ships in Jamaica after being promised farmland, tools, and a fresh start. What they got was a plot of rocky hillside in the middle of Westmoreland, almost no support, and a fever season that killed them by the dozen. The colonial government essentially forgot about them. The survivors stayed anyway, cut off from the coast, marrying into a community of a few hundred people for the next century and a half. That is why Seaford Town, deep in rural Jamaica, still has families with blue eyes, blonde hair, and German surnames on the mailboxes. Walk into the old cemetery, and you will see it written out. Rows of headstones with names like Hacker, Eldemir, and Wedemeyer, most of them from the first 2 decades, most of them children. Locals will tell you the graveyard does not feel empty at night. They will tell you about lights moving along the tree line, and about a woman heard crying near the Catholic church who is never there when you go looking. Seaford Town is not dangerous. It is just profoundly, unsettlingly alone. And after dark, it lets you know. Number 9. Me-No-Sen-You-No-Come, Cockpit Country. This one is not a translation, and it is not a joke. There is a real settlement in the Cockpit Country interior whose name is a full sentence, and the sentence is a warning. Me-No-Sen-You-No-Come. If I did not send for you, do not show up. The name comes down from the Maroon era, when the interior of Jamaica was not colonized so much as it was avoided. Escaped Africans built free communities in that limestone maze and fought the British to a standstill from inside it, because they knew every sinkhole and every hidden path. And the Redcoats knew none of them. Ambush country. A place where invitation was the difference between a visit and a death sentence. The name stuck. So did the attitude, and honestly, it earned the right to stick around. The bush out there swallows sound. Cave systems run under your feet for miles. There are stretches where a compass is more useful than a phone, and a machete is more useful than both. If you want to see it, you find a Maroon guide from Accompong or Flagstaff, and you ask permission. That is not superstition. That is the actual literal instruction contained in the name of the village. Number 8. Windsor, Trelawny. Windsor is a scatter of houses at the northern edge of Cockpit Country, and the reason people come is the hole in the hillside behind it. Windsor Great Cave runs for miles under the limestone. Every evening around dusk, the bats come out. Not a few dozen, hundreds of thousands of them, pouring from the mouth of that cave in a column so thick it looks like smoke. And the sound of it hits you in the chest before you see it. Then there is the inside. The cave floor drops into shafts. Underground rivers run through chambers that flood without warning when it rains on the plateau above. And rain on the plateau above is not something you can see from inside a cave. Scientists have mapped sections of Windsor for decades, and they still find passages nobody has been down. The locals who guide visitors carry rope, spare lights, and a very short list of places they refuse to take you. Villagers say there are duppies in the deep chambers, spirits of people who went in and never came back out. You can believe that or not. What is harder to argue with is the floodline on the cave wall, well above your head. Number 7. Roaring River, Westmoreland. Roaring River is a small village wrapped around one of the most beautiful things in Jamaica. A spring bursts straight out of the limestone here, ice cold and glass clear, and it fills a series of blue pools that look almost artificial in photographs. It is also one of the most spiritually loaded places on the island. For generations, people have come to these waters to bathe, to petition, to leave offerings, and to have things worked out for them by practitioners of Obeah. You will find candles at the water's edge. You will find rum poured on the rocks and coins pressed into the mud, and you will find people who did not come here to swim. The cave above the pools is where it gets serious. It is dark, low, and slick, and it opens into chambers that were used long before anyone was selling entry tickets. Solo visitors get a very specific problem here, which is that unofficial guides will attach themselves to you the moment you park, and the negotiation that follows is not always friendly. Come with someone, come with a plan, and whatever you find at the water's edge, leave it exactly where you found it. Number 6. Bath St. Thomas. St. Thomas is the parish Jamaica's tourism industry pretends does not exist, and Bath is its strangest corner. A runaway slave found the hot springs here in the 1690s while hiding in the hills, and the story goes that he used the water to heal wounds on his legs that would not close. Word spread. The colonial government built a spa around it. The water still comes out of the mountain hot enough to burn you if you get the mix wrong, loaded with sulfur and minerals, and people still travel across the island to sit in it. Some come for arthritis. Some come for something else entirely. Because St. Thomas is also the heartland of Jamaican spiritual practice, the parish with the deepest reputation for Obeah, and Bath is at the center of that reputation. The road in winds through cane fields and thick bush, poorly lit, with long, empty stretches between settlements. Ask anyone in Kingston about driving through St. Thomas at night and watch the pause before they answer. Nobody is going to bother you at the springs during the day. It is the road and the hour, and the fact that if something goes wrong out there, help is a very long way behind you. Bring a driver who knows the parish, go while the sun is up, and do not treat what you see at the water as a novelty. People come to Bath because they believe it works, and they are not performing for anybody's camera. Number 5. The Rose Hall District, St. James. Above the resort strip in Montego Bay sits Rose Hall, and above Rose Hall sits the legend of Annie Palmer. The story says she was the mistress of the estate in the 1820s, that she murdered 3 husbands and an unknown number of enslaved men who she took as lovers, and that she practiced voodoo learned in Haiti as a child. They called her the White Witch. The story ends with her being killed in her own bed and buried in a corner of the property under a sealed grave, because the people who buried her did not want her getting out. Here is the complication. Historians have gone looking for Annie Palmer and mostly come back with a much duller woman who did not murder anybody. The legend appears to have been built and polished over a century, partly by a novelist. None of that has stopped what people report. Staff at the Great House talk about doors, footsteps, and a mirror nobody wants to be alone with. The surrounding district, the old cane land, and the small settlements that sit on top of it, has its own stories that have nothing to do with tourism. That land holds hundreds of unmarked graves of people who were worked to death on it. Whatever you think about Annie Palmer, that part is documented, and you can feel it in the ground. Number 4. Charlestown, Portland. Charlestown sits on the Buff Bay River on the northern flank of the Blue Mountains, and it is one of the 4 surviving Maroon communities in Jamaica. That word matters. These are the descendants of Africans who escaped enslavement, fought 2 wars against the British Empire, and won a treaty that recognized their land and their self-governance. Charlestown is not a museum, and it is not a photo opportunity. There is an Asafu yard here where the drums are kept, where the abing is blown, and where ceremonies still happen that were never designed for outsiders to watch. The abeng is a cow horn, and it is not decoration. It carried coded messages across mountain ranges during the wars. Maroon elders still know how to speak with it. Visitors are welcome when they come correctly. Correctly means through the colonel or through the community's cultural center, on their terms, at their invitation, with your camera down unless you are told otherwise. Show up alone, wander into a ceremony, and start filming. And you will find out very quickly that the rules here are not the rules of Ocho Rios. That is not a threat. That is a sovereignty older than the United States. Number 3. Port Royal, St. Andrew. Port Royal is a quiet fishing village at the end of a long sand spit outside Kingston, and it is sitting on top of a crime scene. In 1692, this was the richest and most notorious port in the Caribbean, home to pirates, privateers, brothels, and enough gold to make it worth the trouble. Preachers called it the wickedest city on earth. Then, on the 7th of June, at around 20 minutes to noon, an earthquake hit, and 2/3 of the city slid into the sea in the space of a few minutes. Thousands of people died. Many of them are still down there. The buildings did not wash away. They sank, and archaeologists diving the harbor have brought up entire rooms, dishes still on tables. A pocket watch stopped at the exact minute the ground opened. What is left above water is strange in its own way. Fort Charles is still standing. Next to it sits the Giddy House, an artillery store that tilted so far during a later earthquake that walking through it makes your inner ear scream, that the floor is level when it plainly is not. The village goes very quiet after dark, and the streets empty fast once the last bus back to Kingston has gone. Fishermen will tell you they hear things out on the water on still nights, bells and voices carrying across the harbor from a direction where there is nothing but open sea and a drowned town beneath it. Given what is under that water, you would hear things too. Wander the shoreline alone at night, and you get a very practical problem on top of the eerie one. The old fortifications are crumbling, the drop-offs are unlit, and the sea takes people from that spit every single year. Number 2. Accompong, St. Elizabeth. Accompong sits high in the Cockpit Country hills, and it has been effectively self-governing since 1738. That was the year the British Empire, having failed to defeat the Maroons in the mountains, sat down and signed a treaty with them instead. The land they were granted has never been fully surrendered. Walk into the village and you will find the Kinda tree, an enormous mango tree under which the ancestors are said to have gathered before battle. Nearby is the Peace Cave, where the treaty was reportedly discussed. Every 6th of January, the whole community fills with drums and abin calls for the birthday of Cudjoe, the leader who fought the British to the negotiating table. Here is what tourists get wrong. Accompong has a colonel, a council, and its own rules, and there are areas of the community that outsiders do not enter, and ceremonies that outsiders do not record. People have been asked to delete footage. People have been asked to leave. Come through the proper channels, and you will be received with real warmth and some of the best storytelling you will hear anywhere on the island. Come as a tourist with a drone and no manners, and you will learn a lesson about whose ground you are standing on. Number 1. Nanny Town, Blue Mountains. And this is the one. The village that is not on the map anymore, because the British made sure of it. Nanny Town was the stronghold of the Windward Maroons, high in the Blue Mountains, named for Queen Nanny, the woman who led them. For years it was untouchable. The British sent expedition after expedition up those ridges, and the mountain ate them. Wrong turns, ambushes, disease, and a fog that comes down so fast, you lose the person walking 6 feet in front of you. In 1734, they finally got artillery close enough. They shelled it, burned it, and destroyed the settlement, and the survivors withdrew deeper into the mountains and rebuilt elsewhere. Nanny Town itself was never resettled, not by anyone, not in almost 300 years. The ruins are still up there. Reaching them takes days of hard hiking through some of the most punishing terrain in the Caribbean, and here is the part that gets people. Experienced Jamaican guides will take you a long way up that trail, and then a number of them will simply refuse to go the final stretch. They talk about whistling with no one around. They talk about the sudden cold. They talk about the feeling of being counted. Nobody lives at Nanny Town. Nobody has wanted to move back. Whatever you make of that, one thing is not in dispute, and it is this. That mountain has been swallowing people who came uninvited for 3 centuries, and it has never once had trouble finding room for one more. So there you have it, 11 of them. Villages guarded by treaty, villages guarded by terrain, and one village guarded by whatever is still standing watch in the fog above the Rio Grande Valley. If you take one thing from this list, take this. Jamaica does not hide these places to be mysterious. It hides them because they were built by people who needed to be hidden, and that history has not finished with the island yet. If you want to go deeper into the Maroon Wars and the woman the British could never catch, the story of Queen Nanny is on screen right now. Click it now, and I will see you up there at the trailhead, where the fog comes down.